My sister used my business plan to win a $50,000 startup grant, so I bought the domain she needed and watched her investors walk out one by one. I never expected my biggest betrayal to come from my own sister. Growing up, Mia and I were tight, or so I thought. She was 2 years older, more extroverted, more polished, and definitely my parents' favorite. I was the quiet one, the nerd, the potential. My parents called me their little genius until I turned 18 and said I wanted to be an entrepreneur instead of going into medicine. After that, I was wasting my brains. That's where it all started. I had this idea during my second year of college. A digital tool to help small, independent creators manage and monetize their content across platforms. I called it Creator Core. Clean, scalable, flexible. I'd done the wireframes myself, surveyed creators on Reddit and Discord, even started building a prototype using every free weekend and hour I had. Mia had just come back from business school, looking for her next big thing. She was one of those people who could charm a room full of strangers, but couldn't open Google Sheets without asking me how to calculate a total. Still, I trusted her. Big mistake. We were home for the holidays when I made the mistake of showing her my mock pitch deck. I didn't even think twice. She called it cool, but a little idealistic, and said it probably wouldn't fly with serious investors. That stung, sure, but I took it on the chin. Mia was blunt. She always had been. I didn't find out what she did with it until almost 5 months later. I was scrolling LinkedIn during lunch when I saw a congratulatory post. So proud of my girl Mia for winning the CitySpark grant with her startup, CoreConnect, empowering creators everywhere. My heart dropped. I clicked through. CoreConnect wasn't just similar, it was a knockoff, a rebrand of my concept, my copy, even the user journey. She'd tweaked a few buzzwords, slapped her smiling face on it, and presented it as her own. She even used my pitch deck. I could tell from a typo in one of the graphics. I'd written synergize as synergize, a dumb, tiny mistake she clearly hadn't noticed or cared to correct. $50,000. That's what she got. Non-repayable. Enough to get an MVP out the door, impress early investors, hire a small team. She never told me. Not even a text. I remember sitting there, staring at the screen, not even angry at first. Just stunned. Numb. Then the fury hit. I confronted her 2 days later. I called and said I needed to talk. She sounded chipper, like nothing had happened. When I asked her straight up, "Did you use my Creator Core plan to win that grant?" She didn't even deny it. She just laughed. "You're being dramatic. It was just an idea. You didn't even file anything or pitch it. Besides, I changed the name. It's not even the same now." I don't remember hanging up. I remember shaking. I remember staring at the blank wall of my apartment and hearing her words echo. Just an idea. As if it was worthless. I wanted to scream. To post the pitch decks side by side. To burn it all down. But I didn't. I went quiet. I got strategic. I knew Mia well enough to predict her next moves. She had the grant, but no tech background. No product. No domain yet either. She hadn't bought anything public. I checked, so I bought it. I bought CoreConnect.com, CoreConnect.io, Core-Connect.com, and a dozen variations. I bought the trademark. I bought domains close enough to cause confusion, just in case. Then I waited. I kept tabs on her through her socials. She started hyping up the launch, posting Instagram stories from investor brunches, tweeting vague motivational quotes about hustling. Still no product. Still no dev team. Just noise and branding. About 3 months later, I got an email. "Hi, this is Mia from CoreConnect. We're interested in acquiring the domain CoreConnect.io for our upcoming launch. Would you be open to negotiating a sale?" I didn't reply. She followed up. Twice. Then I got a message from a guy named Brent, claiming to be her brand strategy lead. His email was more formal but desperate underneath. They needed that domain. A new investor wanted a polished online presence for their funding round. Still, I said nothing. 2 weeks later, my friend Lauren, who worked in a boutique VC firm, called me. "Hey, weird question. Your sister's startup isn't actually your idea, is it? She pitched to one of our partners, and he's asking if the tech is protected. Something about domain confusion." That was all I needed. I sent Lauren both decks. The timelines. The typo. And then I emailed a quiet, respectful note to Mia. "Thanks for the interest in the domain. I'm currently holding on to it for a potential project. Hope all's well." No threats. No gloating. Just a cold reminder. This wasn't over. Not yet. After I sent that email, Mia didn't respond. Not a thank you. Not a counteroffer, just silence. I figured she was trying to figure out how to spin it. That was always her style. When faced with a problem she couldn't control, she'd pretend it didn't exist until it blew up in her face. And now? That face was on every press piece hyping CoreConnect as the next big thing in creator monetization. I wasn't just watching her crash and burn, I was curating the matchbox. In the weeks that followed, I kept everything quiet. I didn't post online, didn't call her out publicly, didn't brag to friends. I went full ghost mode. I used the time to build something better. The original Creator Core idea wasn't just a pitch deck. It was something I'd obsessed over for nearly 2 years. I'd studied creators' pain points, researched monetization models, and even consulted a few indie devs on scalable builds. Now I went all in. I filed for incorporation under a different name, Loopback. I hired a small but brilliant dev team overseas using savings and a freelance bonus from a contract job I'd just wrapped. Every night, while Mia was out at networking events and champagne brunches, I was on late Zooms debugging features. But here's the part that still makes me pause when I think back. I wasn't doing it just to get back at her. I was doing it because I believed in it. Even after she stole it. Even after the trust broke. I couldn't let her steal that too. Meanwhile, whispers about CoreConnect kept circulating. Through a friend in UX consulting, I heard that Mia had finally tried launching a landing page, but it redirected to a 404 because she used coreconnect.com, a domain held by a tiny medical device firm in Minnesota. Then came the investor fallout. Apparently, someone had flagged that her MVP wasn't actually functional and that a project with an identical feature list, mine, had been submitted at a local startup incubator over a year prior. She'd used the same slide layouts, same graphics, same fake testimonials. She was so cocky, she didn't even change the font. Now, I wasn't the one who flagged it. But when one of the investors reached out to ask if I'd ever worked with Mia in a design capacity, I gave them the truth. I told them I'd built the original concept and that it had been used without my consent. I attached both documents, and I let them make up their minds. By mid-May, Mia was down 2 investors, and her CoreConnect socials had gone radio silent. That's when she emailed again. I realized there's been some confusion and miscommunication. I'd really appreciate the chance to talk. Just us. That line. Just us. As if that made up for anything. I ignored the email. She followed up with a longer one a few days later, more formal this time. A vague apology, laced with that brand of faux humility that's designed to make the victim feel guilty. She claimed she didn't realize how serious I was about the project, that she only meant to test the waters and didn't expect it to take off. She closed it with, "If you'd be willing to let me use the domain, I'll compensate you fairly. This doesn't have to get messier." Messier? She was worried now. She'd always been able to talk her way out of trouble before, bad grades, car accidents, credit card debt. But this was public. This was professional. And for the first time, she wasn't dealing with mom and dad sweeping it under the rug. She was dealing with me. And I'd stopped playing nice. Around that same time, Loopback was gaining traction. I'd soft-launched a beta to a small group of independent creators, mostly musicians, podcasters, and niche writers. They loved it. The dashboard was clean, analytics were transparent, and payouts were smooth. No subscription traps, no hidden fees. They started posting about it without me even asking. It wasn't viral, but it was real. Organic. Mia, on the other hand, was flailing. I heard through a mutual cousin that she was trying to pitch a revised version of the startup using a different name, Creator Nest. But that one was also already taken. Then she tried Creator Link. Taken. She even went as far as to ask if I'd be open to collaborating, which was just her way of saying, "I need you to clean up the mess I made with your own idea." I declined. Politely. That's when the pettiness started. She posted on her private Instagram story, thinking I wouldn't see it. That people who can't execute on their ideas shouldn't hoard domains like playground toys. That I was so focused on justice, I forgot how capitalism works. Oh, I remembered. Which is why I finally made the move I'd been waiting on. I launched the full Loopback site, with a short about section. Nothing too dramatic. Just enough to make one thing clear. Originally conceptualized in 2020, Loopback began as a response to the growing gap between digital creators and the platforms that profit from them. Built with integrity for creators, by a creator. That was it. No names. No callouts. Just facts. I updated all the domains she wanted to redirect to Loopback, too. Every time she typed in coreconnect.io or coreconnecytap.com, she saw a sleek interface that was everything she tried to fake, and a tagline at the bottom. Ideas are only as good as the people who bring them to life. 2 days later, I got a message from one of her remaining investors. A short email. No greeting. Consider our support for Core Connect fully withdrawn. Thanks for clarifying the origin of the project. And just like that, Mia's house of cards finally fell. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I wish I could say that watching Mia fall apart felt satisfying. I'd fantasized about it enough. Her face crumbling in some VC's office as the funding evaporated, her carefully curated LinkedIn updates drying up, her ego forced to swallow its own weight. But the truth? It felt weird. Not empty, not disappointing. Just quieter than expected. Like I'd climbed a mountain just to sit and realized the wind still howled the same way at the top. It wasn't fireworks. It was closure, and sometimes that's just a quiet door clicking shut. But before I could let it all go, there was one last thing to finish. I didn't just want her investors to know the truth. I wanted her to feel it. Not in a vengeful, fire and brimstone kind of way. Just in that slow, crawling way shame works when no one around you is applauding anymore. I created a brief case study for Loopback's soft launch. Nothing flashy, just 3 success stories from indie creators who used the beta to make real money. One of them, a Twitch streamer with barely 5,000 followers, earned more in a month than they had in the previous quarter. Another, a spoken word artist from New Jersey, used the platform to crowdfund a local tour. These weren't unicorns. They were exactly the people I designed the platform for. I added their quotes to the website, shared the case study with a few journalists I'd met at a tech conference the year prior. I didn't name Mia. I didn't even reference her startup. But when the article dropped, anyone who'd been watching closely could connect the dots. The headline was subtle but brutal. From stolen pitch to startup powerhouse. How Loopback quietly ate its competitor alive. It went semi-viral. Tech Twitter picked it up. Reddit too. People started digging. The screenshots from Mia's deck. My original timestamps. The slide similarities. A few anonymous folks, who I didn't even know, started defending me in comment sections. Suddenly, I was the underdog who'd outsmarted the overconfident grifter. Which is when Mia finally called me. Not emailed. Not texted. Called. I stared at the phone buzzing on my desk. MIA in all caps. Like the irony wasn't lost on the universe. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the transcript popped up. You win. Okay. You got your little victory lap. I don't care about the domain anymore. I don't care about the startup. I just want you to stop dragging my name. It's enough. You've made your point. I listened to it 3 times. Not because I wanted to savor it, but because I genuinely couldn't believe the ego still leaked through even in surrender. She thought I wanted her name. Like I was clinging to some obsession. She didn't get it. It was never about dragging her name. It was about reclaiming mine. There's something that happens when someone close to you, family, friends, people who say they love you, treats your work like it's disposable. Like you are disposable. You either believe them or you fight. And even when you win, you carry that weight for a long time. I thought about replying. I drafted something, deleted it. Instead, I posted a short video on Loopback socials that day. No speech, just footage of creators using the dashboard, smiling at their screens, real payments coming through. Caption, built with love, launched with resilience. No need to say anything more. That night, I got an unexpected email from one of the early Core Connect investors who'd pulled out. He'd seen the article, explored Loopback, and wanted to talk funding. I scheduled the meeting for the next week. By then, Loopback already had over 10,000 waitlist signups. The platform was growing faster than I'd planned. I hired 2 more devs and a content strategist. We got our first brand partnership offer a month later. It wasn't a massive deal, but it was real. It meant someone believed in what we were doing. Meanwhile, Mia deleted all traces of Core Connect from the internet. Her personal website went dark. Her LinkedIn changed. Suddenly she was on sabbatical. No mention of entrepreneurship. No humble pie post. Just silence. The poetic part? She started freelancing as a pitch deck designer on Fiverr under a different name. A friend found her gig by accident. The reviews were mid. She used all the same buzzwords she once laughed at me for using. I smiled. Not out of spite. Just symmetry. One night, months after the dust had truly settled, I opened the email thread she'd sent me the day she stole the pitch. I reread it. The fake support. the lies, the way she framed my work as collaborative inspiration. Then I opened the final invoice from our first brand partnership. It was 5 figures. I printed both, taped them side by side on the wall above my desk. A reminder. One showed the start of everything that broke me. The other, what I built from the pieces. That weekend, I visited my parents. They'd always liked Mia charismatic, they'd called her. Ambitious. When they found out what she'd done, they were shocked, but not entirely surprised. They'd always assumed I was too soft to compete with people like her. Now, sitting across from them at the dinner table, I told them Loopback had just onboarded its 1,000th paying user. My mom blinked. Wait, that's yours. I smiled. Has been. Since day one. She didn't say anything for a second. Then she reached across and squeezed my hand. That moment? It meant more than any of the press coverage, any of the investor calls, any of the domain redirects or interviews or apologies that never came. It was real. It was mine. And Mia? She might have lit the match, but I built the fire. Mia didn't vanish. Not completely. People like her don't know how to disappear without some dramatic finale. For a while, I'd hear rumors mutual friends would mention seeing her at networking mixers, now introducing herself as a branding consultant or startup strategist. She always seemed to be between ventures. I let it go. I had better things to build. Loopback kept growing. Not exponentially, not in a Hollywood, overnight success kind of way, but steadily. Creators came, stayed, and brought their friends. Our feedback loops were tight, and we prioritized the community before polish. We weren't trying to be the next tech unicorn. I just wanted to build something honest that didn't treat artists like data points. Still, there were moments when she came up in unexpected ways. One of the artists on the platform, an illustrator named Danny, reached out through the support chat one day. She had questions about onboarding, and we got into a quick exchange. She mentioned that she'd previously almost signed up with something called CoreConnect, but it seemed sketchy. I just said, trust your gut. You're in the right place now. She responded with a smiley. I didn't correct her. That night, I drafted a letter. Not an email, not a text. A real, handwritten letter. To Mia. I wasn't sure why. Maybe it was for closure. Maybe I just wanted to make peace with a version of me that still lived in that old apartment, explaining APIs to her while she half listened and scrolled through Instagram. I didn't plan to send it. I just needed to write it. Mia, you once told me I had too many ideas and not enough execution. That I was too careful. Too low-key for the startup world. You were half right. I am careful. I think before I speak. I prototype before I pitch. I listen before I move. What you called hesitation was me learning. What you called wasted potential was patience. And what you stole wasn't just a pitch, it was trust. I've built something now that reflects who I am. Not loud, not flashy, just real. You don't owe me an apology anymore. I already gave myself what you couldn't, respect. And I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I never mailed it, because that wasn't the point. About 6 months after Loopback hit its first revenue milestone, I got an invitation to speak at a small creative tech conference in Boston. It wasn't a big event, mostly indie makers and startup founders. But it felt full circle. It was the kind of space I'd once dreamed of being in, back when Mia and I would sit on our old, stained couch debating business models over reheated ramen. I almost didn't go. Public speaking had never been my thing. But I remembered something a mentor told me once. If your story can save someone 2 years of self-doubt, it's worth telling. So I went. I talked about failure, about betrayal, about how your first idea won't always be your best one, but it might be the one that teaches you how to survive. I didn't name names, but I didn't sugarcoat things either. People came up to me afterward, some with tears, some with notebooks full of scribbled questions. One woman asked, "How do you recover when someone you love betrays you professionally?" I told her the truth. You don't recover. You rebuild. Later that year, I bumped into Mia. Of course, it happened in a bookstore. Poetic. I was browsing the nonfiction section, and she was at the register, arguing over a return. Her hair was shorter, and she wore a blazer that didn't quite fit right, like she was trying to channel a version of herself that no longer existed. I don't think she recognized me at first, but I did. She caught my eye as I walked past and blinked, the kind of blink people do when their brain is rapidly flipping through memories trying to match a face. I gave a small nod. She opened her mouth, maybe to say something, maybe just to breathe. I kept walking. There was nothing left to say. Not because I was bitter, because I was done. A few weeks after that, I got an email from a nonprofit incubator that worked with underrepresented founders. They wanted to feature Loopback as part of a case study on ethical entrepreneurship. That hit me harder than any article or investor pitch. I'd built something that wasn't just profitable, it was principled. People were learning from it, believing in it, using it to lift themselves, not just chase exits or IPOs. At the end of the day, Mia taught me one thing. You can't fake integrity. Not in relationships, not in business, not even to yourself. You can plagiarize a pitch. You can steal a deck, but you can't manufacture soul. And when the lights fade and the buzz dies, that's all that's left. I sat in my office one evening, months after everything had finally gone quiet, scrolling through testimonials we were collecting for Loopback's one-year mark. One of them read, "I almost gave up after getting ghosted by my first sponsor. Then I found Loopback. Now, I'm paying rent with my music again. Whoever made this, thank you." I smiled. I didn't need to respond. That was the answer. The night before Loopback's official one-year launch anniversary, I sat alone in my apartment, the same one I'd been in when Mia stole my pitch. The air smelled like burnt coffee and cheap celebration champagne. I was tired and honestly, a little overwhelmed. A lot had happened in 12 months. We'd surpassed our projected growth. I'd hired a team I actually trusted. We were partnering with a major creator collective and onboarding entire groups at once. A far cry from the version of me who used to write user journeys on napkins and cry into delivery Thai food. But what caught me off guard most wasn't the success. It was how quiet the triumph felt. Don't get me wrong, I was proud. Deeply. But I kept waiting for that cathartic scream, that cinematic moment where I'd throw my head back and yell, "I made it." Instead, I just felt steady, like a chair finally resting on all four legs after years of wobbling. That night, I got a message from one of our early creators, a teenage spoken word poet from Michigan. "I made $430 last month just doing what I love." My dad cried when he saw it. "You changed my life. Just thought you should know." I read it 3 times. I didn't need applause. I had that. 2 weeks later, we held our first in-person Loopback community meetup. Just a small thing in Brooklyn, 40 creators, rented space, some snacks, a mic, and a lot of gratitude. I gave a short talk. Nothing fancy. Just thanked people for trusting something small. Told them how I once felt invisible in a room full of louder, richer voices. How Loopback was born from that silence. Someone in the crowd asked, "Did anyone ever try to steal your idea?" I paused, laughed quietly. "Yeah, but they couldn't steal the reason I built it." Afterward, someone told me I sounded like a TED Talk. I took that as a weird compliment and a sign I'd healed more than I thought. That night, walking back to my place, I passed a group of people laughing outside a bar. One of them looked a lot like Mia. I didn't look twice. A month later, Mia finally emailed me. No fake name this time. No business account. Just her personal email, the same one she used to use when forwarding me dumb BuzzFeed quizzes at 2 a.m. The subject line was just, "Loopback." I hesitated before opening it. I don't know what I expected. A weird half apology? Another passive-aggressive dig? It was 2 sentences. Saw the Verge article. "Congrats, sincerely. You were always better at this than I let on." There was no signature. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was emotional, but because I genuinely didn't know what to do with something so small. It wasn't enough, but it also wasn't nothing. I didn't reply. What do you say to someone who wrote you off, only to watch you rewrite your whole story without them? Loopback is now part of a startup accelerator focused on community-first platforms. We're still small compared to giants, but I get to wake up every day and build something honest. That means more than any viral moment ever could. People still ask me for the revenge story sometimes. I get it, it's catchy. The pitch that got stolen. The domain I bought. The dramatic investor exodus. They want me to tie it all up in a bow, like I walked away with confetti in my hair and Mia faded into irrelevance. But real life isn't a perfect arc. The truth is, revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it just works. It's a login notification. A successful payment. A poem posted from a tiny town in Vermont with 10 likes, but 10 people who heard it. It's building something no one believed you could. It's reclaiming your voice after someone tried to write you out of your own damn story. And it's knowing that somewhere out there, the person who once laughed at your ideas has to watch you thrive quietly, consistently, and without them. I keep the old pitch deck Mia stole from me in a folder titled, "What They Thought I Was Worth." Right next to it is another folder, "What I Know I Am." One is full of assumptions. The other? Screenshots of wins. Messages from creators. That photo from the first Loopback meetup where someone gave me a keychain that said, "Built different." I carry that keychain everywhere. Not because I need the reminder, but because I want the kid I used to be, the one who thought he needed permission to matter, to know he made it. On his own terms. Epilogue. Years from now, someone will probably try to write a glossier version of this story. They'll say Loopback was born from betrayal, forged in hardship, and fueled by justice. And that's not wrong. But it's not the whole truth either. Loopback wasn't built because someone stole my idea. It was built because I finally believed my idea was worth protecting, even if no one else did at first. And if you're reading this because someone told you you're too soft, too slow, or too quiet for this world, build anyway. They'll hear you soon enough.